Hey, X-World, it's me, yours truly. Boy, what a beautiful day it is here in Las Vegas. Even though the game is indoors, it wouldn't have mattered, but still, it's nice to have a beautiful day like this.
O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown Simpson's 1985 wedding. The best man was Al Cowlings, the guy who just 9 years later would be behind the wheel of the Ford Bronco.
According to TMZ, before O.J. passed away, he talked to many of his close friends and family in his final days, but he didn't admit to the murders.
Meanwhile, Simpson's friends are mourning him today at his favorite bar.
Every Sunday I was with him watching, football.
Ashley Myers says Grape Street in Las Vegas was Simpson's second home. And he continued to deny that he was dying, right to the bitter end.
Hospice? Hospice? You talking about hospice?
A source mentioned that he didn't mention anything about Nicole or Ron or make any confessions before he died. They said, unless asking for water or wanting to watch a golf tournament counts as a confession, nothing about the LA thing came up or was even thought about.
And we are going to bring him to justice.
Police in Los Angeles now believe they have spotted the car they have been looking for. As you can see, moving slowly up the freeway.
TMZ reported that sources claimed everyone who visited O.J. in the days before his death had to sign NDAs. This apparently included family members, friends, and medical staff who were helping him during his hospice care. It was said that many friends came to say their goodbyes, and some even flew in to be there. Additionally, O.J.'s two youngest children, whom he had with Nicole, were reportedly with him during his final moments.
In the years leading up to the murders, O.J.'s wife, Nicole, had called 911 several times reporting domestic violence and accused him of stalking her. Although he was acquitted of murder, he was later sued in civil court and found liable for their deaths.
The report also mentioned that Simpson remained close with his former Buffalo Bills teammate, Al Cowlings, who famously drove the Bronco during the infamous chase. However, it's not clear if they had been in touch in recent years. Michael R. Militello, meanwhile, was about to start his morning workout at a gym in Amherst when he got some surprising news from a guy in the locker room who was checking his phone. The guy said, "Hey, O.J. just passed away, one of the most famous people in America." Militello thought it was odd because he had been thinking about O.J. all morning. He'd even thought about him right when he woke up and on the way to the gym. He had talked to O.J. around Christmas and knew he wasn't doing well, so the news didn't shock him. He felt sad about it and was thinking about O.J.'s kids. Militello mentioned that O.J. might not have been the best husband, but he was always close to his kids, and they loved him. In Buffalo, hardly anyone was closer to O.J. than Militello. They became good friends in the 1970s when O.J. was a superstar running back for the Buffalo Bills and one of the most famous athletes worldwide. At that time, Militello was running Mulligan's Cafe and Nightclub on Hertel Avenue, which was like the top spot for celebrities in Buffalo. Even after O.J.'s football days were over, their friendship stuck. Militello was there in 1977 when O.J. met Nicole Brown, a waitress at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, California. According to Militello, they fell in love almost instantly, right in front of him. Over the years, Militello and his wife, Marilyn, stayed really close to both O.J. and Nicole. Nicole pretty much planned our whole wedding, and both she and O.J. were part of our wedding party, Militello remembered. Our kids hung out together, and we often stayed over at each other's places. Things got complicated in 1994 when the Los Angeles police arrested Simpson, accusing him of killing Nicole, who was separated from him at the time, and her friend Ronald Goldman. Militello went to see Simpson in jail after he was arrested. Back in July 1994, when the news talked to Militello, he was sure that Simpson was innocent. He was really happy when the jury found Simpson not guilty of the murders. But when the news talked to Militello again recently, he didn't sound so sure anymore. "It's always been tough for me because one of my best friends, practically like a brother, was accused of killing someone who was also a close friend to me and my wife," Militello said. Did Militello ever ask Simpson directly if he killed Nicole? "I never did ask him, because I knew he would have had to lie to me," Militello said Thursday. "Many times when we got together after the murders, I would look into his eyes. He looked into my eyes. I believe he knew what I was thinking, but we never discussed whether he did it or not." So, does Militello think his friend did it? "I won't say. "I'll just say my thoughts are with Nicole and her family," Militello said. "She was an amazing person." "As for OJ," Militello added, "friendship is friendship. He was like a brother to me, and you don't just ditch your brother because he messed up." Militello, who's 77 now, tries to focus on the good times he and Simpson shared. Even though Simpson was a big shot known worldwide, he was really impressed by the fact that Militello had been a soldier in Vietnam and survived getting shot 3 times, according to Militello. Militello's restaurant was a hotspot for celebs like Bob Hope, the Rolling Stones, Stevie Wonder, Liza Minnelli, Van Morrison, and even astronaut Alan Shepard. But Militello said none of them drew attention like Simpson did. Militello mentioned even Frank Sinatra seemed to be starstruck by Simpson. Frank Sinatra's buddy Jilly Rizzo called me in 1974 and asked if I could get OJ to visit Frank in his dressing room before his concert at the old Memorial Auditorium, Militello remembered. OJ agreed, and the cops escorted us there. When Frank Sinatra met OJ, he seemed just as excited as a kid meeting their hero. For the past 10 years or so, Militello said Simpson would swing by Buffalo at least once a year to catch up. "He'd come with some friends and I'd put them up at a hotel near the airport," he said. Simpson was fond of hitting up sports bars and restaurants around Buffalo. Some folks were thrilled to see him, while others kept their distance, according to Militello. Militello knows that some folks will always see Simpson as a criminal who did terrible things to his wife and her friend. He mentioned that Simpson had told him over the phone around last Christmas that he was worried about his health, especially because of a heart problem that led doctors to give him a pacemaker. OJ was definitely worried, but he was still cheerful and upbeat, Militello said. "He was pretty much always like that, cheerful and upbeat. That's how I'd rather remember him." Meanwhile, another one of O.J. Simpson's friends believes he is innocent of the 1994 killings of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown, and her friend, Ron Goldman. "I never believed he was involved. Never, ever believed he was involved in the killing of his ex-wife and Ron Goldman," Charlie Ehrlich exclusively told Us Weekly on Thursday, April 11th, one day after Simpson died at age 76, following a battle with cancer. "I once brought it up and he had tears in his eyes. I knew in my heart that he has nothing to do with it. I just know." Ehrlich was part of a gang of men led by Simpson who raided a Las Vegas hotel room in September 2007 and demanded sports memorabilia from sports dealer Bruce Framong at gunpoint. Simpson was later charged with armed robbery and kidnapping. In 2008, he was convicted and sentenced to 33 years in jail. He was released in 2017. Ehrlich's charges were lowered to attempted accessory to robbery and attempted burglary after agreeing to testify against Simpson during the trial, and he was sentenced to probation. Ehrlich stated that he had previously been very close to OJ and his family and spent Christmases and holidays at his home, but this had changed. "After the Las Vegas situation, I was not in contact with OJ," Ehrlich told us. "I never had ill feelings toward him. Time passed, and it is what it is, and life goes on. What are you going to say? I know he didn't want me to be in a bad situation when we went to the hotel room. He knew I didn't know that they brought weapons. It was a debacle. Unfortunately, it happened the way it happened. Even though things went bad for me and him, I never had ill feelings toward him." Although Simpson was judged liable for the wrongful death of Goldman and violence against Brown in February 1997, he was famously acquitted of the crimes at his criminal trial in 1995. Ehrlich believes Simpson was not aggressive or capable of murder. "I never saw him angry, and I never saw him yell or be inappropriate or in any way being an angry individual. And in his home, he has pictures of his wife Nicole all over his house," Ehrlich said. "Someone who could do something so terrible and horrific would not want to remember his wife. He had pictures everywhere of her with him and her and the kids. He would mention her to me, how much he loved her, so the media outlets can say what they want. I wasn't there, I don't know, but knowing him the way I did, no way. There are murderers still out there." It's been nearly 30 years since the tragic murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman. The double killings occurred late one relatively calm night on June 12, 1994, in the suburbs of Los Angeles, California. Next month will mark the 26th anniversary of their deaths. Even though the murders have become part of true crime history, People still vividly recall the story of this attractive couple, brutally murdered in the prime of their lives by a ruthless killer. The police arrested Nicole Brown Simpson's ex-husband, O.J. Simpson, for the murders. The O.J. Simpson murder trial had a profound impact on the field of criminology and forensics, bringing these sciences into the public eye and forever altering how DNA is used as evidence in criminal trials. O.J. Simpson was ultimately acquitted of the murders. His acquittal and the aftermath of the case sparked intense debate worldwide, centering on the unsettling question: did a guilty man escape justice? This case famously inspired the creation of several blockbuster television crime shows and true crime dramas, such as CSI Miami, CSI New York, NCIS, Cold Case Files, American Justice, and Forensic Files. The O.J. Simpson trial also highlighted the shortcomings of the LAPD crime lab and crime labs nationwide, raising awareness about trace evidence. At 875 South Bundy Drive on the night of June 12, 1994, a neighbor discovered both victims while walking his dog between 10:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. along the sidewalk outside Nicole's Beverly Hills condominium in the Brentwood section of Los Angeles County. It's reported that Nicole's 2 children were asleep inside the house when she was killed. Upon the arrival of homicide detectives at the scene to conduct their investigation, suspicion immediately fell on O.J. Simpson, a well-known actor, former NFL football star, and Nicole's estranged husband. Prior to Nicole's death, O.J. had faced accusations of physically abusing her, leading authorities to focus intensely on him. This suspicion mirrored the belief among seasoned investigators that ongoing domestic violence between partners often provides a clear motive when one partner ends up dead. The brutal murders of the young couple sparked one of the most high-profile and controversial criminal investigations in U.S. history. Eventually, Hall of Fame football star O.J. Simpson was charged with the murder of his ex-wife Nicole and her friend Ron Goldman. The DNA evidence against Simpson was overwhelmingly incriminating. While his lawyers didn't dispute the validity of the evidence, they focused on claims of mishandling and contamination. Additionally, Simpson's blood was found at the crime scene, including a bloody glove discovered at his Rockingham estate, which matched another bloody glove found at the Bundy address where Nicole and Ron Goldman were tragically stabbed to death. How much evidence was needed to convict O.J. Simpson? When Simpson stood trial in L.A. Superior Court for the double murders in January 1995, the gripping drama, filled with vivid tales of race, murder, wealth, and rumors of evidence tampering by a biased renegade cop, earned the title Trial of the Century. The acquittal of Simpson after 26 years has sparked ongoing debate in the legal system about how to better evaluate scientific evidence as technology advances. The nation was transfixed by the Simpson case, and millions tuned in to watch the sensational trial unfold. Every twist and turn of the real-life saga kept viewers on the edge of their seats. They watched as police slowly pursued Simpson's white Ford Bronco, with A.C. Cowling at the wheel, in the hours before his arrest. Inside the vehicle, an emotional Simpson threatened suicide. Viewers were riveted as Simpson attempted to try on the infamous gloves in the courtroom. Struggling to fit his large hands into the gloves, Simpson famously declared, "They are too small." This moment, reminiscent of a scene from a Perry Mason episode, led Simpson's lead attorney, Johnny Cochran, to declare during closing arguments, "If it don't fit, you must acquit." The case was filled with compelling elements that captured the public's attention, particularly the image of a wealthy black man in America hiring a high-profile legal team to defend him against charges of murdering 2 white individuals. Allegations surfaced that a racist police detective had framed Simpson with questionable blood evidence. According to Los Angeles forensic professor Don Johnson, a former criminalist with the LA County Sheriff Department, the evidence against Simpson was overwhelming. If we consider an average homicide case, the evidence against Simpson was overwhelming from the start, he stated. Johnson highlighted the blood evidence recovered from Simpson's shoes, socks, and the crime scene, as well as blood found in Simpson's white Ford Bronco and on the residence's gate. The jury focused on the possibility that the evidence had been planted by the police, particularly by Detective Mark Fuhrman, who was depicted as a biased officer. The issue of blood planting, exacerbated by Detective Philip Van Adder's mishandling of Simpson's blood vial, was central to the trial. Van Adder had mistakenly transported the vial and then handed it to criminalist Dennis Fung, who was already searching for evidence at Simpson's Rockingham mansion. If buccal swabbing had been available in 1994, similar to its availability now in 2020, Detective Van Adder could have simply taken oral swabs from Simpson's mouth using a cotton tip. This process would have eliminated the need for a blood vial. Simpson's attorney, Johnny Cochran, accused the police and prosecutors of rushing to judgment to convict Simpson at any cost. He claimed that the LAPD lab, which tested the forensic evidence, failed to maintain the integrity of the evidence and conducted testing using sloppy procedures. OJ's defense team argued that the evidence couldn't be trusted. The jury fully bought into this argument and acquitted Simpson on October 3, 1995, without even requesting to review the DNA evidence. What if Simpson were tried in court today with the numerous advancements made in forensic evidence testing? Scientists nowadays are more knowledgeable about DNA testing, partly thanks to the Simpson trial and the abundance of crime shows on television. Jurors today typically expect DNA evidence to be presented in trials, and they often question why no DNA evidence was provided. People think they understand forensics more than they actually do, says Lisa Graziano, a professor at Los Angeles State University, in a Daily Press article. Famed Fox anchor reporter Van Susteren also commented on the complexity of DNA testing in a Washington Post article, stating, "DNA was so complex and complicated that nobody really understood it." Race undoubtedly played a central role in Simpson's case, according to a retired police detective sergeant. "Never in my life have I witnessed a case with so many twists and turns focused on skin color," said Johnny Bonds, an expert in homicide investigations. Bonds, who has had a successful career in law enforcement, attracting Hollywood's attention, also commented on LAPD Detective Mark Fuhrman's role as the fall guy in the defense's racist theory in the Simpson case. Although Fuhrman shouldn't have lied on the stand about his use of racial slurs, Bonds explained, he became a focal point for the defense's argument. Furthermore, Bonds noted that the case was inundated with false reasonable doubts. "And never have I seen a case generate so much false reasonable doubt in favor of a guilty murderer." Bond's achievements in law enforcement have drawn interest from Hollywood, with a movie in development based on a respected book about his 1979 triple murder-suicide case titled The Cop Who Wouldn't Quit by Rick Nelson. As President Harry S. Truman once said, "If you can't convince them, confuse them." On January 24, 1995, the jury trial began in the case of O.J. Simpson. Both the prosecutors and Simpson's defense team recognized the importance of educating the jury about the DNA testing conducted on Simpson's blood, found at the crime scene where Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were murdered on June 12, 1994. The jury consisted mainly of ordinary citizens who were not familiar with scientific concepts or testing procedures. The defense and prosecution took their time explaining the intricacies of the evidence from a scientific standpoint. They clarified how a suspect's DNA profile is generated from a sample collected at the crime scene and how the testing process establishes a high probability of matching the suspect's DNA to the blood found at the scene. They stated that the probability of the blood matching Simpson's was 1 in 170 million inches among American men. Today, advancements in DNA testing have improved to the point where the probability of a match can be as low as 1 in trillions of the global population. Despite this, during Simpson's trial, it took over a month for prosecutor Marcia Clark to present DNA evidence linking Simpson to the murders, and many scientific terms bewildered the jury. One juror admitted to a reporter that she had never heard of DNA and didn't fully grasp its significance. Another challenge for the prosecutors was the mishandling of the blood evidence, which allowed the defense to argue that it had been either planted by detectives or contaminated due to poor lab practices. In 2020, public awareness about DNA has increased significantly, especially with the prevalence of news coverage and forensic crime shows. DNA evidence is now widely accepted as conclusive proof in criminal cases. Organizations like the Innocence Project have highlighted the power of DNA in exonerating innocent individuals, with 367 people exonerated by DNA evidence as of November 2019, including 21 who had been sentenced to death. Additionally, CODIS, Combined DNA Index System, now holds a vast database of DNA samples from individuals across the country, aiding in criminal investigations. When crime scene technicians recover blood from a crime scene, it's a crucial piece of evidence that can help identify a suspect and potentially solve the case. Proper documentation, collection, and preservation of this evidence are essential for maintaining its integrity. The chain of custody, or the documented record of who has handled the evidence, is key to ensuring its proper processing and control. Mishandling blood evidence can seriously compromise the facts of a case, especially in homicide investigations. Once O.J. Simpson became a prime suspect in the double murders, homicide detectives questioned him about a noticeable cut on his finger. Simpson initially claimed the cut was from throwing around a golf bag or luggage. When detectives seemed skeptical, Simpson changed his story, saying he cut his finger on a broken glass in a Chicago hotel after learning about his ex-wife's murder. Detective Philip Van Natter collected a vial of blood from Simpson's arm to develop his DNA profile, known as a reference sample. However, the handling of Simpson's blood sparked allegations that detectives had planted it at the murder scene and Simpson's house. Unfortunately, Van Natter unintentionally violated a cardinal rule by transporting Simpson's blood sample to a criminalist already collecting blood evidence at Simpson's Rockingham estate, instead of submitting it directly to the police lab. Simpson's attorneys also raised concerns about the reference blood sample, noting that approximately 1.5 milligrams were missing from the vial between collection and receipt at the lab. They argued that blood from the crime scene belonging to the real killer had been cross-contaminated with Simpson's blood. Trial testimony revealed that blood containing cotton swabs recovered from the murder scene were allowed to dry before being stored the next day. Attorney Johnny Cochran detailed how the original blood-soaked swabs allegedly belonging to the real killer were either switched or mixed with Simpson's blood to incriminate him. With advancements in DNA testing, reference DNA samples can now be collected using buccal swabs. This process involves a suspect voluntarily allowing an investigator to use a cotton-tipped swab to collect oral saliva and skin cells. Unlike blood samples collected in vials in 1994, buccal swab collection kits are sealed and signed in the suspect's presence, preventing tampering. This method offers several advantages. If a kit is tampered with, it's evident, making it difficult for corrupt individuals to plant evidence. Investigators frequently use buccal swabs today due to their efficiency and reliability for subsequent DNA testing. Had O.J. Simpson's reference DNA been collected using a buccal swab, the defense would have been unable to raise suspicions of planted evidence, switched blood samples, or blood contamination. During the trial, the jury became confused by mixed DNA profiles and the terminology used by DNA experts. Phrases like "cannot be excluded" were common, indicating that a developed DNA profile could potentially match a reference sample but couldn't provide absolute certainty. Experts emphasized that no reference sample could guarantee a perfect match to a specific person. Advancements in DNA testing have made it easier to decipher mixed DNA profiles. For instance, standard tandem repeat (STR) testing of the Y chromosome can determine if a blood sample is from a male donor, as Y chromosomes are found only in males. Once identified as male, the DNA can be isolated and analyzed using YSTR, distinguishing between male and female DNA. Unfortunately, this technology wasn't available during Simpson's trial. Hair strands recovered from victim Ron Goldman's shirt and a knit cap found at the crime scene were microscopically identical to Simpson's head hairs. However, microscopic comparisons couldn't conclusively match known hairs with those found at the scene. Today, mitochondrial DNA testing of human hair, inherited from the maternal line, could determine the identity of hair found at a crime scene or on a body. If tried today, advanced mitochondrial DNA testing could positively identify or exclude Simpson based on hair samples found at the scene. This testing would provide more definitive results than the interpretative results of microscopic comparisons. The Simpson trial highlighted the importance of understanding DNA testing and forensic evidence. While we can't be certain how a more educated jury would have ruled, it's clear that the science could have outweighed any mistrust or perceived biases against law enforcement. The acquittal of O.J. Simpson raised questions about the jury's understanding of DNA evidence and the impact of racist statements made by Detective Mark Fuhrman. These factors likely influenced the jury's decision and shaped public perception of the case. Regardless of the outcome, Simpson's trial transformed forensic evidence testing and the criminal justice system's approach to evaluating evidence in court. Now, O.J. Simpson was found responsible in civil court for the deaths of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman. He was ordered to pay over $33 million to their families, but they have not yet received these damages. While the status of the Brown-Simpson family's pursuit of damages remains uncertain, the Goldman family is determined to continue their efforts despite O.J. Simpson's recent passing. David Cook, a lawyer representing Fred Goldman, Ronald's father, stated in an interview that they are committed to pursuing the judgment as they had before. However, he did not provide details on their specific plans. In a previous email, Mr. Cook expressed that Simpson died without penance. Although acquitted of the murders in the 1995 criminal trial, Simpson was found liable in the 1997 civil trial. The civil jury unanimously concluded that he willingly and wrongfully caused their deaths and awarded $25 million in punitive damages. According to court documents filed in 2022, the Goldman family has received approximately $132,000 from Simpson. It's uncertain if this amount includes proceeds from the auctioning of O.J. Simpson's memorabilia, such as his Heisman Trophy, which were intended to contribute to the damages. Additionally, earnings from O.J. Simpson's book, If I Did It, were also directed toward the damages. As of Saturday, it remained unclear how much of the damages the Brown-Simpson family had managed to recover. Mr. Cook, representing the Goldman family, declined to provide specifics about the money received. However, the total amount received so far is still significantly less than the owed sum. Due to annual 10% increases in interest on the unpaid portion, the current amount owed has ballooned to $114 million, according to Mr. Cook. On Friday, O.J. Simpson's will was submitted to Clark County Court in Nevada. Dated January 25th, it places O.J. Simpson's property into a trust. Malcolm Laverne, a longtime attorney for O.J. Simpson and the executor of his estate, stated that legal experts and accountants are advising him on the estate, including various claims, one of which involves the Goldmans. Mr. Laverne acknowledged that O.J. Simpson had previous debts to the Internal Revenue Service, estimated to be a few $100,000, though he did not provide further details. He expressed willingness to pay amounts to the Goldman family and others if advisors determined it was necessary. However, he indicated that if there was a legal way to manage the estate without payments to the Goldmans, he would consider that option. Mr. Laverne is also assisting the family with other matters. He disclosed that O.J. Simpson will be cremated on Tuesday with funeral plans yet to be determined. Additionally, he mentioned receiving a call from a researcher studying chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, but clarified that the family would not be donating O.J. Simpson's brain for CTE study. Recovering any portion of the damages from O.J. Simpson has been a challenging endeavor for the Goldman family. Following the civil trial, O.J. Simpson claimed he lacked the means to pay the amount. Christopher Melcher, a California lawyer specializing in family law, explained that there were limitations on how much of someone's wages could be garnished in such cases. O.J. Simpson's relocation to Florida in 2000 provided further protection, as state law shielded his home from creditors, and he continued to receive substantial pensions, approximately $400,000 annually, from entities like the NFL and the Screen Actors Guild, which were also safeguarded from seizure. In 2006, Fred Goldman expressed his frustration to The Times regarding O.J. Simpson's avoidance of responsibility for the jury award. He emphasized, "How else can it be said?" and remarked, "He's made every effort to avoid that judgment." Christopher Melcher, however, highlighted that the impact of the judgment itself shouldn't be overlooked, even if the payment hasn't been made. He described it as akin to a debtor's prison, intending to linger over O.J. Simpson's lifetime, ensuring he couldn't amass wealth without the looming possibility of Fred Goldman seeking to collect. Melcher pointed out that claims on a person's estate, such as that of Michael Jackson, who passed away in 2009, can endure for a long time without resolution. For the Goldman family, the pursuit continues. Yet, as Goldman stated after the civil trial, the primary goal remains the verdict itself. He emphasized that the money has never been the central issue, stating, "It's holding the man who killed my son and Nicole responsible." That's all for the video, folks. Thanks for watching.